What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of fights, and it's a big pay-per-view week this time with Kamaru Usman defending his welterweight strap once again against Leon Rocky Edwards. At long last, Leon Edwards gets his shot at the belt. How's it going to end? Will it be different than the first time they fought? I'm not quite sure, but we got 13 fights. The main card just got switched up with a questionable change of fights, where I think Marcin Tybura and Alexander Romanov is now leading the prelims, and we've got a women's bantamweight bout that everybody's excited to see in the main event. So a little bit of an odd choice there, but let me shout out the chat real fast before I bring my guest in. We got our boy Zach Singleton, a mainstay in the MMA community, Victor De Jesus. What's up, Patrick and chat? Let's make some money, of course. Oh, these two titans of the industry just had a nice live stream tonight. Blood Money MMA Bets, my guy Cody, and my guy Johnny K Picks. All right, let's without further ado, my guest this week for a pay-per-view week had to be a very special one. And this guy, Tom, along with his buddy Keith, they run a podcast called the Pickin Winners podcast over on the same YouTube channel name, Pickin Winners. Go and check them out. I shout them out quite a bit because they do great work. Good, really sharp bets and a concise style of picking fights. And they put their content out super early on a live stream on Sunday. So check out their channel. And right now I have one half of that team, my guy Tom. I'm going to bring him in. What's going on, Tom? How you doing?
Nothing much, man. Hey, listen, I am super excited for the way the UFC decided to switch up the main card. Who isn't excited for Pudilova versus Yanan Wu? I actually have a fat head being made up right now for the back wall. Unfortunately, it didn't come in time. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't. We were talking about it earlier. Why would, if you want to have a female fight on the main card, why you wouldn't pick Miranda Maverick, someone who has potential to do something in the sport and in the rankings.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about this. I totally understand like having to have a really like exciting fight on the prelims on ESPN Plus, but you could have chose any other fight to sub into the main card. But either way, we roll on. There's still 13 fights nonetheless, no matter how you chop it up, mix it up. So why don't you just introduce yourself and talk about kind of how you got into this whole YouTubing and MMA gambling business?
Yeah, so I am actually what I would still consider a UFC rookie a little bit. About 7 or so years ago was when I started my UFC journey, and it was just because I was in college and we were playing UFC, the video game, and that led to watching some fights around, right around the prime of when Conor McGregor was running things and he was jumping back and forth. It was a fantastic time. So that's what got me into the UFC, and kind of since there it just blossomed, and I started, I figured like about 2 years in, when I was talking to my friends who had watched UFC for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years at the time, when I was able to have like those UFC based conversations and feel like I was holding my own, I was like, all right, now I'm really getting there. And then it just since then started engulfing me. I really don't watch any other sports other than following the Raiders. And right around the pandemic, everyone's bored, looking for things to do. Me and my buddy Keith started up a podcast, and we had a couple different changes, went through a couple different iterations, but bottom line is so far in the year, we're picking about like 71% and having a lot of fun doing it. Nice. And, like you said, I appreciate you shouting us out whenever you can. And we do the same thing to you. And
yeah, we'll get Keith in here at some point too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, but yeah, that's a little bit, or actually a lot of it about me.
All right, so we're just going to go one by one through these fights from the bottom to the top, starting with Victor Altamirano and Daniel Da Silva at 125 men's flyweight to kick off the card. And it's a fight where the line has actually moved quite a bit from when I looked at it on Sunday. Victor Altamirano was around that minus 200, 2-1 favorite mark, plus 170 on Daniel Da Silva. And now it's moved where Victor Altamirano is actually like minus 175 in a lot of books, plus 140 for Daniel Da Silva. So if you were looking to take this shot on Altamirano, the line's moved in your favor. If you're on that dog, you kind of missed the boat on it. But I like Daniel Da Silva. I just like him in one round. He's a southpaw, killer be killed style fighter. He's had kind of a rough run of luck in the UFC so far. He had a good round one against Jeff Molina, which means a lot. Took the back early, was able to kind of pressure him against the cage and almost get a couple of submissions going. But, Jeff Molina then in round two, I don't think Daniel Da Silva's ever been outside of 1.5 rounds in his entire, career, 11-3 record so far. I like him if this is a one-round fight, and I think he's a very dangerous potential underdog here, honestly. But I have to go with the more, well-rounded guy in Victor Altamirano, who's shown he can actually kind of accelerate through a fight. He started flat in his last performance, if I'm being honest, against Hernandez. And he's coming off of back-to-back split decisions, a win on the Contender Series and a loss, in the UFC in February. So he's really got to make a statement here, and this is a tough guy to do that for. So I'm not sure how to play this fight. I do like fight doesn't go just because we have one guy who's kill or be killed and has never seen, the second half of a 3-round fight. But I'm picking Victor Altamirano just because of that potential drop-off. But round 1 could be sketchy if you're betting Altamirano. What do you think, Tom?
I feel a little bit more comfortable than you do betting with Altamirano. Like I watch him and I see almost shades of like Tony Ferguson. The way he walks forward, kind of has the hands at a weird position, throwing a little bit more of like a I guess anti-technical style. I think he's more of a fun fighter. I think he has a little bit more control no matter where he's going. Or not control, but I think he just has a little bit more of an edge no matter where it is. Now, I think De Silva probably has a little bit on the ground in terms of just pure ability and ability to submit you. But like you said, as the fight goes on, I want to give it more to Altamirano. He's shown a good ability to go in there, get hit, withstand, keep going. He's shown, ability in his last fight to get out of bad situations. So I've just seen a little bit more from him. And I'm going to go with Victor Altamirano a little bit because of my mind, but mostly because of my heart. I just like watching him fight.
Do you believe in any sort of potential improvements from Daniel Da Silva? He is this killer be killed guy, but he was a little bit more measured last time out against who was he fighting? Can't remember now. Figueiredo, right? Francisco Figueiredo. He looked like he was picking his shots a little bit in the first half. He managed to change levels, get that easy takedown, and then get caught up in a really slick knee bar. It looked like he was it's hard to tell because it was so early in the fight, but maybe he was pacing himself, maybe not. I don't know. Do you think at 26 years old he can make these improvements and be a kind of a bettable dog here?
Well, it's actually, I think the during the middle of a career is probably when it's the easiest to bet somebody because you've seen things from them and you can see them refine them as they get older. When people are at the early stage in their career, it gets really difficult because it all depends on the work that they put in outside the gym. Number one, they're going to make fast improvements, but also just their genetics and their body type, they're still growing into that. So it's really hard to tell, but from everything that I've seen from Daniel Da Silva in his fights, he's just seemed to be not as good as the other opponent. He just seems to be a little bit overmatched. It's not like, oh, he's clipping this guy and he almost won and then this happened. He just seems to be overmatched in my opinion. So for that reason, I feel a little bit more comfortable with Altamirano. Not saying that Daniel Da Silva can't make those improvements necessary. It's just hard to say that without having much to go off of. And like you said, he was a little bit more measured, but where did that get him?
Yeah, so now that it's kind of moved down to I've seen minus 170 on some books for Altamirano, do you think that's bettable? I was thinking about laying a bet down on Altamirano just for that potential that, this is going to be one of those spots where you could get the guy who's going to be able to go, former flyweight champion. He's actually been 5 rounds before. Do you think that's worth taking a stab on minus 175?
Absolutely. I mean, as those odds are getting better, I'm not a guy who looks at the odds too much. I look at, the past fights, watch the fights, and what's the fighter feel? What's the eye test? And I think Victor Altamirano passes the eye test for me more times than Daniel Da Silva does, especially when you start breaking it down by different areas of the fight. And then I go over and I look at the odds and I go, well, I think Victor Altamirano, I think he's going to win. And if I can get him at better odds than I was earlier in the week, I'm going to roll with that. I'm not going to let somebody else, or the Vegas impact me one way or the other. If I end up picking all of the favorites, well, I think all the favorites are going to win. That's just it.
Yeah, I'm very much like that as a bettor too. I'm not one of those value boy bettors usually. That's not a bad way. That's not a bad way to go about it, in long term sometimes, but you're not just going to throw, quarter units here and there just on things that you don't think are going to happen. I'm the same way. I have to see a path if I'm going to pick
talk to Gianni the Greek because that's what he does all the time. Gianni the Greek is a big value boy.
Now that guy's I'm going to have him on my channel at some point. We're going to do a couple lines of Adderall and get after some money. Bunch of over 1.5s like he does in the Contender Series no matter what fight it is, over 1.5. So, yeah, Mushroom's saying the same thing. Lacerda round 1 or bust. Oh, yeah, and maybe a round 3 sprinkle. There's going to be a few of those spots with guys with kind of fading cardio on this card where I think the round 3 is there we go. My boy. Actually, yeah, we should talk about that, Tom. You and I were a couple of the only guys that had really good nights last week, and we were both on GM3.
And we'll talk about this as we get a little bit later in the card. But whenever everybody is so convinced about one guy, it makes me a little bit nervous. And, when you go back and you watch those fights, we know that GM3, he wants to submit you. That's his bread and butter. He likes to stand up, and he's shown improvements there, but the ground game is where he specializes. And yeah, there was just a thing that I was seeing with Bruno Silva, man. Like, I just felt like on the ground, he didn't have it. Like, and everyone's talked about that. Oh, he's good on the ground. He's good here. I just didn't see it. So, phony the Greek. I like that a lot. Yeah, but yeah, I think I saw the opening in the game for GM3, and like I said, I thought he was going to win. And when Vegas doesn't line up with me, that's where we cash in.
That was exciting. So, potential prop on that first fight before we put that one in the trash now.
I think that one's going to go the distance.
Okay.
I think that one's definitely going to go the distance.
You think so? You think finally De Silva sees the third round?
I don't think Altamirano is going to get his chain cracked by Daniel De Silva. He got a bunch of good fights coming back, or a bunch of good punch coming back at him from Hernandez. He has really good head movement. That's something that I wrote down here. He's also got really fast left leg kick to the body. So using that left leg kick to the body, I think could definitely slow down De Silva and his ability to have that first round power. And then once it goes on, I just start swaying more and more to Altamirano. So I like him by decision.
All right. Moving on, up a weight class now, slightly, 10 pounds, going to bantamweight between Jay Perrin taking on Aoriqileng, the Mongolian murderer. So we've got, I got to update some of these odds. I saw plus 140 Jay Perrin, minus 165 Aoriqileng. I wonder if that swayed more in the favor of Aoriqileng here. No, it's about the same. Most books are about the same, plus 130, minus 160. Yeah, I got a bet on Aoriqileng. I really do think he's the better fighter everywhere in this bout, but I'll let you kick this one off.
Well, I mean, you said it right there. I watched a couple of Jay Perrin's fights, and I feel very similar about Jay Perrin as I felt with Daniel De Silva, that, you know, he's good in a variety of different areas, but overall, I think he just has been overmatched in his last few bouts. He's, you know, good at striking, good at grappling, good against the defense, but against guys who specialize in one particular area or are better than him in those areas, he doesn't have anything in his bag of tricks that he can pull out, you know, if he's ever in a lot of trouble. And Aoriqileng has looked very good, especially at 35. He's looked powerful. He's looked quick. He's been able to put people away. He had a good fight with El Jefe, and, you know, he almost beat El Jefe if he didn't get, rocked at the end of that fight. So I'm seeing a lot of good things from Aoriqileng, not a lot of things that make me confident in Jay Perrin. And I think Aoriqileng can get it done. Like I said, he's looked a lot better at 35. He's shown some grappling issues in the past, but like I said, been better at 35, bigger, less drained. I like him, and I like him by finish.
Yeah, what type of finish? Do you see him getting the TKO like he did against Cameron Else from the top position? Because that was like a ground and pound stoppage against Else, wasn't it, in his last fight?
Yeah, well, here was the thing. He was going to the body, though. He was digging to the body. He was hitting to the body pretty consistently. And even after he wasn't able to punch Else in the face while he was on the ground, he was punching him right in the body. So what I other like about Aoriqileng is that fight IQ. Oh, guy's hurt there. I'm not going to just continue stabbing it, but I'm going to set up intelligent shots and intelligent striking combinations to get there and capitalize on where that guy's hurt. So I think it's going to be more of a ground and pound. Not that you really have to make that bet. But I think that the TKO is the bet that I'm going to go for Aoriqileng. I don't know if he'll get it done in the first, because like I said, Jay Perrin has shown to be well-rounded. But I think Aoriqileng does eventually get that done.
Yeah, and for Jay Perrin, like the guy's got like pretty good ability everywhere, right? But like you said, he's just been overmatched. And every time he reaches that upper level of competition, he's got to go to the Contender Series or his, the fight in the UFC is almost forgivable because it was short notice against, Batista, who's very tough. But even like his Bellator appearances, like anytime there's that step up in a bigger stage, he's losing all of those fights. He can win, and he kind of even makes them close, like the regional scene tape I saw in like Cage Titans. Like some of those are like super close fights. And I just think everything about Aoriqileng, there's no real hole in his game that I see Perrin exploiting. Perrin is very good at like kind of getting like stalemate positions against the cage and things like that. But I think Aoriqileng, you kind of hit that nail on the head when you say he looks better at 135. Like he looks bigger now. And, all the measurables are about the same for these guys, same age, same height, just about the same reach. But, Aoriqileng actually has like twice as many fights and then some. So pretty good positive decision record. I think he gets this done the same way you're saying. Yeah, and I saw Mushroom called out the round 3 or decision prop. Not a bad look, honestly, if you can get a good double chance prop on that one. But, Aoriqi's I like his, as you mentioned, like that war against Molina was super telling too. The guy can fight through fatigue pretty well. Him and Molina both put up and absorbed like triple-digit significant strikes. So that was a really fun fight and a loss where you actually got like stock earned in a loss, which I like. So, all right, once again, we're both on Aoriqileng. You got any bets on this fight? I got the money line at -160.
Yeah, I would take the money line to be safe. Like if I'm looking for something, swing for the fences a little bit more. Yeah, I would take Aoriqileng and maybe the second. But we haven't. I hate betting for something that I haven't seen before, and we haven't seen Jay Perrin get put away, especially not in his most recent fights where he's looked arguably the best. So I don't have anything to go off of to suggest that he's going to get finished. So that I think it's a lot safer going with the money line.
I got the money line. The prop I have on that is the Aoriqileng decision, which is at even money, +100. So you can kind of transform that by 60 cents on the dollar. But it was just for the stats of it, right? There's just more durability on the side of Jay Perrin. But yeah, moving on to back to flyweight now. There's a lot of lightweight fights going on here, smaller weight classes. Amir Albazi finally returning after a 1.5-year long layoff. This guy actually looks like he's got that it factor at flyweight, facing Francisco Figueiredo, the younger brother of the flyweight champion right now. But I do like Amir Albazi. The guy's really good. He's basically got all of the skills to win this fight. It's just the layoff has been pretty brutal, We haven't seen him since what? That was in January of 2021, right? So he's supposed to fight Ode Osborne. He's supposed to fight Tim Elliott. Those both fell through, so it's not all his fault. But Francisco, I think, gets shit on a lot for being kind of a worse fighter just because it's kind of in comparison to his older brother, right? But he's not a bad fighter. He's a decent size for the division. Pretty good skilled, crafty, striking on the feet, and a really good submission fighter. We talked about him finishing Silva on who's the opening fight. 8 submissions, 3 knockouts. Amir Albazi, in turn, also has 8 submissions, 4 knockouts. Do you think this will be like kind of a stalemate bout where they kind of can cancel each other out and go to decision here? Or who do you think comes out the victor?
I think Amir Albazi comes out the victor. I think Francisco Figueiredo I have a rule that siblings and or spouses can't be good in the UFC at the same time. And Deiveson Figueiredo is the champion right now. And whether you think that that's rightful or not, at the end of the day, you can't knock that Deiveson Figueiredo is one of the top, champions in that division or top fighters in that division. And Francisco Figueiredo in his last fight, he was losing that fight until he caught like a really crafty knee bar against a guy that I don't think terribly highly of in Daniel Da Silva. Amir Albazi, I think highly of. He came out and he got a decision a finish by key lock on short notice in his first UFC fight. This is a guy who is very aggressive on the feet, but when it comes to the ground, he is just as good on the ground. I think he's a very exciting fighter, and I think he beats Francisco Figueiredo wherever this fight goes. I'm thinking that it may go to decision just by Figueiredo's ability to hold his own on the ground. But if I have to get a little bit more specific, I'm going to go Albazi by sub. I don't think he's going to finish him on the feet, but I think he might be able to sub Figueiredo. But I don't know. We'll see. It'll be a good test for him on the ground to see just how inept and how good he is down there.
Yeah, and people must be parlaying up Albazi quite a bit because this went from like -400 all the way to -450, more going towards -500 now for sure. So it's getting pretty crazy. The layoff does sketch me out as far as playing this and parlaying him. But yeah, he's got very good boxing. Like you said, he can probably win this wherever the fight goes, especially the later it goes too. Like Figueiredo's pace and pressure does slow as he gets tired. You see his hands kind of go down by his sides when he gets tired too, just tries to bait people in, and usually a lot more hittable as Figueiredo as this goes on. So I think that Albazi's got the cardio and pace, and the layoff sketches me out. But again, the guy's 28 years old as Albazi at this point, so you can be a little bit less weary of the long layoff. Maybe he was improving his skills, and I don't know. Last week kind of got me off of my trend of there's a lot of times I always favor the over just statistically with these flyweight fights. But Ode Osborne, I was very confident that fight would go over, and that was a round 1 knockout loss. So I got both the time wrong and the fighter wrong. So now I'm suspect of like everything.
Well, if you're listening to Daniel Cormier, Ode Osborne was winning that fight until he wasn't. I don't know if you caught that, but Daniel Cormier and Michael Bisping, they were like jawing at each other almost, like as politely as they could have a conflict during a
that's right.
live
I do
ESPN event. Yeah, where he's like, "Oh, how could you say Ode's not winning this fight?" And Bisping's like, "I don't know. I think it's just early to say that. What about you, Brennan?" And Brennan's I would tend to believe it's a little early." And then right as Ode got knocked out, Bisping goes, "He's winning! He's winning!" And I thought it was hilarious that he just got that little jab in there. But
and they kept on joking joking about that at like every single fight after that, like about calling who's winning the fight too soon. But yeah, I'm with you on Albazi. Obviously, this is like a 4.5 to 1 favorite here. I think he is just. I really do think he can go far in this division too. He's 14-1. Just it always sucks when you see these guys that have all the potential in the division and they don't have the momentum because they're taking time off or their fights get canceled. But yeah, not much we can do with this one. I like your inside the distance props there. You got any good numbers on those, or is that something you've played yet?
No, that's not something I was able to take a look at, but in real time, let's see.
Because the problem with a lot of these this week is you have all these big favorites, Pedro, Maverick, Albazi, and then you look at their props like to try to get cute with it, and it's still like a horrible price tag even on their like specific props.
So you got Albazi by decision at plus 285, or by submission rather at plus 285.
Okay.
Fight going to decision is minus 138 right now.
And Figueiredo, honestly, like there's not a whole lot of evidence that he's, susceptible to getting knocked out or submitted, but he also hasn't been tested that much, especially at the UFC level, only having 3 UFC fights against guys that are not that great. His best win so far is probably the fight he just had, who's against, an 0-2 UFC fighter. Like Malcolm Gordon, he lost to. And that was really not that great of a fighter either. He was close to getting put out, and he was also close to finishing Gordon in both parts of that fight.
And he lost to Jerome, or he beat Jerome Rivera by decision, but Jerome Rivera is
no longer in the UFC.
Cupcake chin, I was gonna say. So I mean, there's not a lot of positives going in the direction of Francisco Figueiredo.
Yeah, not at all. So I guess we just don't count out Albazi, but not a whole lot of fun ways to play this. I do like your prop though on the sub. That's not a bad plus number. Like Cody just. Like Johnny K. Picks just pointed out, Maverick sub. Yeah, even that is like you have to transform a minus 500, minus 600 favorite, and then you're still getting like something around like the, I don't know what, plus 100, minus 100. We'll get to it eventually. But first up, Loosa taking on AJ Fletcher. I love this fight at welterweight because I like both of these guys. I think Loosa is another one of these guys where he's got like all of the gifts to possibly be something in the UFC, just hasn't shown it yet. Same with AJ Fletcher, and he has been able to show it on the Contender Series and in his first fight, although he came up short. So why don't you kick us off, and what are you feeling for this fight?
Well, this one's really close when you look at the lines. I think they moved. I don't know what they were to start, but now they've seemed to get a little bit closer. Plus 130 on Loosa. AJ Fletcher minus 160. AJ Fletcher 9-1. His first loss coming most recently against Semi the Jedi, in which he actually did get out grappled in the later rounds there. You could say that Semi the Jedi was a good step up for him at the time. But now looking back, Semi the Jedi has went on to do some things that weren't all that impressive. AJ Fletcher, he trains with good competition. He had Dustin in his corner. He has very strong grappling, at least in the first round versus Semi the Jedi. He has shown that he could potentially have some tank issues. And, like I said, the Jedi record really didn't age too well. And then when you go back and you look at some of the people that he fought prior to the UFC, you got a lot of guys in there that don't have very impressive records. So, I always get a little bit wary about that when you look at their competition outside the UFC and it doesn't look very strong. It indicates what their coaches potentially may think about them. And then for Loosa, he's a guy who's taken some losses, but he's always looked solid. He has, came in on short notice and looked pretty solid against Munir Laziz. He did bump Buffer, and that was his UFC debut. So those are two things that typically go against a fighter, making your UFC debut and, fist bumping Buffer. So, and the fact it was short notice, I'm going to forgive that, especially with how he looked. He did really well against Jack Della Maddalena. That's a guy who basically, Angelos is the only person that Della Maddalena has not finished. And he looked really good against him, especially as the fight went later. Cornered by Gilbert Burns, Ange is. He is really good when he lets his hands go. His confidence is pretty high, at least against Munir Laziz, for a guy whose first UFC fight. You didn't see him go out there and have an adrenaline dump. He was pretty composed and stayed within himself. He defends takedowns very well. And the other thing I like about him specifically is that he listens to his corner very well. Like there was a specific part in a bunch of his fights where you can hear Gilbert Burns or someone in the corner go left hook, left hook, left hook, bang, hits him with a left hook and then it lands. So I like the coachability from Loosa. I like how he's looked. I like a little bit more of his UFC experience. I think he'll be able to deny some takedowns from AJ Fletcher, which is going to be his bread and butter. If it gets to the ground, having Gilbert Burns in your corner is nothing to be upset about. It's great help. I think Ange Fletcher is gonna get this one done by decision. I just think that AJ Fletcher potentially can gas a little bit in the first round, and as the fight goes on, Ange Loosa is gonna have been there a little bit, and like I said, he's shown the ability to do well. He's got a good right hand and a left hook. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ange Loosa to get this one done by decision.
Yeah, it looks like the line's pretty much stayed where it was, about plus 130, plus 135 on Loosa. AJ Fletcher money coming in, and I've been driving the price on it, man. I'm actually opposite with you. I like AJ Fletcher in this one. But we are on the same side as far as the time. I don't think AJ Fletcher gets Ange Loosa out of there, even though Fletcher has finished 8 out of his 9 fights so far, inside the distance. I think now that he's taken that step up and faced Matt, Semmelsberger, we kind of see that he's going to go through. He's not just going to walk through and finish everybody in the UFC, right? Ange Loosa, very durable. He's a brick shithouse of a guy, but he's just very slow to open up. He'll get pressured backwards easily. I just really think AJ Fletcher's a guy where he's going to use his explosive movements to get in range and eventually just go for those blast double leg takedowns. And he really drives through them, gets them at a high percentage. Even Matt Semmelsberger, he got him like 4 out of 6 times. He just went submission over position a lot of the times in the later parts of the fight. And got a little bit gassed against Matt Semmelsberger and, reversed in those positions. If he would have just stayed on top, position over submission, he probably would have just won the fight and just stayed on top position. But
Semi's not going to be the level of grappler that Ange Loosa is going to be. He's not going to have the strength. And, with Gilbert Burns in your corner, you're going to be evolving at 28 years old.
But I guess so. I just don't see. I see Ange Loosa just being very, very timid. Like he does things
on
well.
the feet,
like he's got very good defense. He's got decent head movement. He is hittable at times. But I don't know. I really think the ground game is going to be something different from AJ Fletcher, who times his takedowns very well, and is just more importantly just more active in this fight. Like I just don't see a whole lot of activity or danger coming from Ange Loosa here. He does have like a nice jab. He is very coachable. AJ Fletcher's been training with a UFC veteran as well. Remember Tim Crater from back in the day. But I just think the output, the cardio, just a well-rounded, fluidity to going from an explosive movement to get in range, like his jump flying knee he finished with on the Contender Series. He's got very good, left hook, right hook combinations to get in range, and then just get his hands wrapped around your hips and take you down. I just really like him at 25 years old to get this done, so we'll see. He's 9-1 so far and only had that first loss to Semmelsberger where he was en route to winning that fight. So I like him at minus 150. That's the price tag I paid, and there's money coming in on him now. So I probably wouldn't bet it much over this minus 170 it's at, but you can get him by decision at plus 200, and that's the side that I'm on for this one.
Yeah, well, if I want to take my safe pick, it's for this one to go the distance. I don't see I think Ange Loosa has shown you that he has a pretty solid chin up until this point, and he's strong enough to defend a lot of takedowns that he's seen coming back his way, and having Gilbert Burns, like I said, in his corner, 28 years old, coachable. I like Ange, but I like it by decision even more. I don't think AJ is going to
probably like 3-1 odds or something on that. I want to say like plus 300. You could probably
Ange
get on
by
that.
decision.
Yeah, I want to say that's something big, which may or may not make much sense, but I like it. I like it to go over as well.
I got Loosa. Loosa by decision plus 285.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, close to plus 300. Yeah, I mean whatever side. So what's this fight goes to decision? Is that you got that pulled up? Because at least we both agree on that.
Yeah, fight goes to decision. We're looking at minus 138. So not too bad.
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. So I told you, at least there's a little bit of disagreement here, but I was looking at the Ange Loosa side too. And, sometimes if there's a dead even, I will take the value side if I think it's like dead even, but I really just do see past the victory for AJ Fletcher. Ange Loosa just kind of has like that, as I mentioned at the top, he's got all the potential, all of the tools, the training, the coaching, he looks like he's got the physical gifts, but he just isn't putting it all together.
This is where he puts it all together.
You think this is the one? All right. Well.
I don't know, maybe. But I also like Gilbert Burns, and I hate Dustin Poirier. So,
okay.
AJ Fletcher is going to be collateral damage on that.
All right. Well, I'll be rooting for it. Miranda Maverick. Here's our other big favorite here. Miranda Maverick and Shayna Young. Let's see if we disagree on this one. Let's see if anybody's taking Shayna Young here.
Shanimal.
We got and this is a rematch, right? This is technically a rematch. It was like an exhibition type of Invicta tournament bout. They fought the first time about 3 years ago. Miranda Maverick won by first round rear naked choke, I believe. It was like round 1. So We'll see if she can do that again here. But again, even those props, like I think round 1 submission for Miranda Maverick is like, what, it's like plus 300 something. I wrote this down. It's something really low. Yeah, round 1 sub for Maverick is like plus 375, plus 400. So even that just goes to show you, like, you combine a round 1 and a method for a female fight at 125. You're only getting 4-1 odds. Just a little goofy there. But she is a minus 500 and climbing favorite. So do you see any way that Shayna Young wins this fight? She does have the height. She has, equal reach somehow, and she's a little bit older, so maybe she's got some sort of experience edge there. What do you see? Do you think Shanimal's got it?
No. I mean, what experience edge has she gained over Miranda Maverick in the 3 years since they've both been fighting?
She's got 6 more years of life experience at 31 years old.
Yeah, life experience that she's dedicated to being a fighter. Meanwhile, Miranda Maverick beat her while she was still in school. Right. Miranda Maverick had not dedicated her life to MMA and still beat Shayna Young 3 years ago by first round rear naked choke. I don't think Shayna's bringing. Yeah, I don't think Shayna's bringing much to the table that Miranda Maverick can't handle. And I think probably the same thing happens again. So I'm going to go with Miranda Maverick, round 1 submission. Rear naked choke. Shayna can't stop it.
I agree with you, and I think that's why this line is so wide, right? You know, you've got the ability, and you can count on Maverick to go for those takedowns. Shayna Young, that's always her kryptonite, right, is the ground game and getting taken down. If this were just a stand-up bout, it would probably be a little bit closer, right? The line wouldn't be this wide because Miranda Maverick does have some deficiencies in her stand-up. You know, she can't get pressured back the way she was against Erin Blanchfield, who's just a better wrestler than she is at this point, in MMA anyways. And she is a little bit hittable on the feet, this Maverick, but you know that she can actually keep moving forward when she does get hit and go for those takedowns. So that's probably why this line is so wide. She's probably going to get that single leg attempt. If Shayna Young has practiced her balance on one leg, it'll quickly get turned to a body lock, and Miranda Maverick will be right in, advancing positions here. I think the submission is probably a good look here. We've seen it play out before between these two same fighters. Can Miranda Maverick just start pounding on her face and maybe get the TKO? That's possible. Maybe you look for the inside the distance, but I think even that is closer to like even money. So it's really hard to find a good way to play this because for a women's fight at 125, all of these props like inside the distance and all these things, you should be getting a lot more money if you're going to pick something that specific. But since she's a minus 500 favorite, you kind of take that and you're baited into thinking it's a good deal. But do you have any bets on this fight?
Yeah, I'm going to take more. I usually take the women's fights almost as a rule to go the distance. Yeah. Here, I'm not going to do that. I think what we said, it went down to like minus 138 to end within the distance.
I saw minus 108.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll take that.
I like that one a lot.
I'll take that one. Go, fight doesn't go to decision. Minus 105. I'll take that. And Maverick to win, and Maverick to win by finish, I think is as safe as I'm gonna go. Because like you said, she could potentially get that ground and pound finish. Animal just may decide to give up in there. We've seen plenty of fighters, plenty of women fighters do that before. So and I think referees are a little bit quicker on the trigger when it comes to like a ground and pound finish for women.
Usually, especially if Maverick is like yelling, going, yeah. And she's like punching her face, and
Yeah, listen, I have something to say about that.
Yeah, get a little Aspen lad going.
I really don't enjoy that. The like I really don't enjoy the sound.
How do you not enjoy that?
Yeah, listen, sorry, maybe a hot take. I don't enjoy that. I don't even really like when guys are. But I understand, like, sometimes that can happen.
I don't like when the guys do it. I like when the women do it. No, but I like when Shukagian does it because she's usually cashing me a fat, decision prop when she's yelling. So I just equate that sound with money being added to the account.
Cha-ching.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I hear. Yeah, Johnny K with you just got chuked. Yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up. The one final point on this fight before we move on to something more exciting. But yeah, it's just the fact that like you're baited in at this point when you're betting. Like you see a minus 500, minus 600 women's favorite here in Maverick, which is very wide. So you're like, oh, well, at least I'm getting even money if I get her in, inside the distance, which is statistically still very unlikely at flyweight. But you think you're getting a good deal. You should be getting a lot more money than that usually. So to get minus, if I think she's going to win, to get like -108 or -110 on the fight not to go. That'll cover Shayna Young accidentally headbutting her and, the doctors stop it and, Shayna Young wins. That covers everything. It's not that much less money than like if Miranda Maverick gets the submission or wins by TKO, right? It's not that far off when you transform to -500 line. So moving on to very good fight here between Sean Woodson and Luis Saldana. This will be an interesting one where we've got a guy in Luis Saldana who has shown that he can kind of fade late in fights. So this being at altitude is always a big narrative this week, right? What are they? They're like around like 5,000 feet elevation.
Yeah, I think it's like 6,000 feet.
Okay, so that's enough to feel a little bit of something, especially when you're fighting. Sean Woodson, a huge favorite here. Last I checked, he was like -335 over Luis Saldana, like +255. Something like that. Let's see if money's coming. Yeah, it's about the same. -335, -350 for Sean Woodson, who's a huge featherweight, 6'2", 79-inch reach at 30 years old. He's 9-1 and 3-1 in the UFC. Luis Saldana, 16-7, 9 knockouts. He's got a negative decision record with 2-4. 2 of those decisions have been in the UFC, but he's got a very nice front kick. Especially in the Dana White Contender Series, he ended his opponent inside the distance with like a front kick, jab cross, front kick, a super cool style, kind of a hands-down style, very loose, and decent striking accuracy moving backwards, too. He can counterpunch, but that's going to be a little bit off the table here because he's lacking 6 inches in reach. Sean Woodson stands very tall, more of a boxing style, keeps his head up because at 6'2" at featherweight, you can kind of be safe doing that. So just giant. He uses his kicks and his long straight punches to kind of maintain distance. He is 5-0 in decisions so far, and he also boasts a knockout over the highly touted prospect in Terrence McKinney. So that means quite a bit these days. Good takedown defense as well. I can't see many reasons to take Luis Saldana here, especially with that potential to fade late. And now we see Woodson is able to accumulate damage on guys like he did in his last fight and actually get his opponents out of there. So I like the Sean Woodson round 3 knockout here. Just if we see Luis Saldana kind of fall apart the way he has in his last couple of fights, I would love to be, seeing this go into a round 3 situation where Luis Saldana is like barely able to get off of a stool. Sean Woodson looks okay and takes the center and just starts piecing him up with those body shots. So I like that. It's like +900, +1,000 for Sean Woodson round 3 KO TKO. Otherwise, I don't know how to play this fight really. I could see maybe parlaying up Sean Woodson. I'm staying off the parlays personally. Once again, it's been working for me, but I got Sean Woodson all day in this fight. What do you think?
Absolutely. Sean Woodson all day. And I think this one is one that I would rather add to a go gadget long arms. Yeah. I mean, on my other show, I had said like he has like basically the same reach as Israel Adesanya and like 3 inches off of Francis Ngannou.
That's just insane ridiculous. At featherweight.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And he knows how to use it too. He's got good kicks. This is a guy who had a really good shot at going professional in boxing. He had an extensive amateur boxing record, and then he got into a car accident. He had injuries, and he decided to go the MMA route. Getting that recent finish via body kicks over Colin Anglin, like I don't know how much stake I'm going to put into that and how repeatable it is. And then the same thing with like Terrence McKinney. And I know I'm maybe like just like trying to make his wins or his knockouts seem less significant. But the Terrence McKinney thing, Terrence was very tired. And, that was a knee that came out of nowhere, which, listen, knockouts are awesome, especially when they come out of nowhere. But I wouldn't necessarily put that as a big indicator that, hey, this guy's a big knockout threat.
That was such a cool knockout, too. Terrence was out cold, dude.
Cold.
And you're right. He was so tired, he was like happy to take a nap at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It was almost like his body willing and succumbing to it. Listen, I think Sean Woodson's going to win this all day. In terms of like how he's going to do it, I think it could potentially go to decision. It could absolutely, because Luis Saldana is more of a counterpuncher and he's used to being the longer fighter, and he's going to be giving up like 4, 5, 6 inches here. His last win was over Bruno Silva. He fought moving back the whole time, and even then it was still kind of close. Luis Saldana's wins and his opponents list isn't something that I would typically, like run home bragging about. He may have a slight edge on the ground, I guess. And I have seen Sean Woodson fade as things got later in the game or later in the fight. So, maybe this is one where, in the third round, Luis Saldana maybe tries to grapple Sean Woodson and maybe has a little bit of success, because typically Woodson's been better at defending takedowns and dealing with the ground game earlier in the fight. And as it goes on, it's gotten worse. Again, this guy is a converted boxer. He uses his legs very well and uses his reach very well. So I'm going to go with Sean Woodson. I'm going to add him to a parlay just because I'm not confident in any particular way it gets done.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad, honestly. And I'd be okay with playing this money line probably, too, on Sean Woodson if it stayed here at like 3-1 odds. Yeah, like if you want to play that straight up, I don't even think that's such a bad look either. I think Sean Woodson's got all the physical gifts. And, as we mentioned, there's a lot of the things that we like for Saldana that Sean Woodson's good at defending, especially, like that forward pressure of Woodson where he just lumbers forward with, pretty good range control. Saldana, pretty good at counterpunching backwards, but it's going to be tough to do here, especially at altitude where he tends to fade. So he's actually been finished, I think 2 or 3 times outside of the UFC in round 3 as well. And then in the UFC, he just looks like shit in round 3. So we'll see what goes on here. A similar story for the next fight at lightweight. We've got Jared Gordon taking on Leonardo Santos, who is a shockingly old senior citizen here at lightweight, right? 42 years old. A lot of fight miles on him. Been in the UFC for a long time. 10 UFC bouts, and that's even with a lot of time between those fights. Jared Gordon, not a very impressive looking guy, but he's somehow found himself to be over a -300 favorite, -330. The comeback on Leonardo Santos +260. What do you feel about this one? Kick us off.
So we got Jared Gordon, who is good at everything but great at nothing. He's a guy who's got good grappling. He's got good jiu-jitsu and wrestling. He's got good clinch work. He's got good stand-up. But when it comes to specializing in any particular area, he doesn't have that in his quiver or his bag of tricks to pull out. We have Leonardo Santos, who maybe a couple years ago would have had a much better shot at this fight. But being that he's 42, being that he doesn't fight all that often, being that he kind of gassed out at the end of his fight with what was it? I think it was it Grant Dawson that he gassed out at the end? Yes, it was Grant Dawson where he looked pretty good in the beginning few rounds, and then as it got to the third, Grant Dawson took him down, beat him up, and beat him by hammer fists. Well, actually what happened is Leonardo Santos at the end of the fight was going for a leg lock and just left his face open and got knocked out by Grant Dawson. But I think part of that played into his exhaustion and his decision making. And then he came out against Clay Guida, almost finished Clay Guida in the first, but in doing so, gassed himself out to where 1.5 minutes left in the first round. He had absolutely nothing left and barely anything left in the second round. So I think this is a guy, and also here's another thing about Leonardo Santos, that if you look at his last 3 or 4 fights, you can definitely see a decline in his physique, which, listen, he's 42 years old. Father time comes for us all. And unless he's having, exogenous Mexican supplements, there's going to be a decrease in performance. Like I said, a couple years ago, I think I would lean towards Leonardo Santos, using the range, using the stand-up, having, his black belt in jiu-jitsu. But Jared Gordon, like I said, he's good at it all. Of course, he's not a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he's a brown belt under John Danaher. So that's something that you can't poo-poo at all. I think as the fight goes on, we've seen Jared Gordon get much better. Actually, the last few third rounds, he's looked really, really good. Grant Dawson, he's looked pretty solid. And against Joe Selecki, he looked good in the second round and even better in the third round. He did end up getting finished by Grant Dawson, but that's after him, going and actually really competing and putting Grant Dawson on the ropes a little bit there. Who's winning some of the grappling exchanges. So I like Jared Gordon at 33 years old coming into this one. Like I said, a couple years ago, I'd probably go Leonardo Santos, but I'm going to have to go for Gordon. And yeah, Mushroom, I'm right there with you. I think Gordon with the round 3 finish is where I would lay this one.
Do you think the cardio of Santos is a little the cardio problems are overrated a little bit, just because, who wouldn't get tired against Clay Guida, that sequence that he had where he thought he was going to finish him? Do you think that's because he made it to round 3 against Jared Gordon? He didn't look great, but, up until the end, he got finished in the last second of that fight. Actually had that round 3 knockout for for Dawson that night, and it cashed at the fucking final second.
Wow, and it doesn't get closer than that.
Yeah,
right?
It was perfect, and you just saw his mouthpiece flying out, and he cashed the bet.
Yeah,
but,
and then another one.
Who wouldn't get tired after that flurry that Leonardo Santos had against Clay Guida? You had to hit that guy's iron chin a million times. and then you have to go out for a round 2 you didn't expect to go out for.
Yeah, but well, here's the thing. I mean, he's had enough UFC fights, and he's old enough to know that, like,
right.
I either finish this guy and I'm going to be screwed, or I conserve a little bit. And listen, if I hit him once on the feet, I might be able to do it again. So I don't want to have the dump here. You would just expect somebody, that far into their career to not do that. Also,
I was hoping you'd say, Patrick, no, your half unit take on Santos at plus 260 is a great bet. His cardio is fine. That's what I was hoping you would say. But I did do a half unit shot on plus 260. Mostly banking on him getting the job done over Jared Gordon in round 1. Listen, if this is a 1-round fight, almost like the very first fight of the night, I think that the line should be flipped if this is a 1-round fight. Like, Santos is such a better fighter. He's huge. He's got very good striking. You're talking about a guy who, knocked out Kevin Lee at his best. You know what I mean? Like,
in 2015.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but like, his striking is actually very good.
He was 35 when he did that.
For being like a BJJ, world champion, his striking is actually very good. It's way better than Jared Gordon. I'm not saying Santos is going out there and like winning, against ranked guys, but Jared Gordon is not that great. We're definitely banking on a downhill trajectory of Santos right after the bell rings in round 1, right? Like, do you think Jared Gordon stops him in round 1?
No.
Or do you think you're hoping that he survives to make it to round 2, and then he's facing a shell of an opponent, So
yeah, I mean, listen, it's so hard. Again, the guy's 42 years old, so you really don't know what you're going to get. That decline can be slow or it could be steep.
Yeah.
The thing
I think if he goes grappling more than striking, I think he'll get less tired. Usually that's how these guys are. Like, these older guys that are in their 40s, they can still go in the gym when they're 40, 50, and they can do BJJ all day long. They don't get tired. As soon as they start striking, They get super tired. So Jared Gordon gives up his back every single round against Grant Dawson. He gave up his back in round 1, round 2, and then finally in round 3, Grant Dawson did enough, and he submitted him. So I think
but he was able to survive against Grant Dawson.
Right,
so if he's able to survive with Grant Dawson, I think he's got to give him the better chance to survive that round 1 and get into round 2.
Maybe.
I think Grant Dawson is especially now, like, you're talking a couple years after their fight. I think Grant Dawson's better now, and he was better when he fought Jared Gordon than Leonardo Santos.
Sure.
Unless I got those years mixed up.
This could be a potential live betting spot. You could live bet Jared Gordon after round 1 and expect that steep drop off. The only reason I wouldn't want to do that is just because I don't have a whole lot of trust in Jared Gordon. Like, last week, I made some cash on live betting Nate Landwehr after round 1. Well, that's like a guy that you can trust to keep going in round 2 and round 3. Jared Gordon, I don't want to trust him to be like, all right, now, buddy, this is when you take over the fight. You always do. Like, he never really does. You just expect he's going to by the Santos narrative.
Like I said,
it is scary, man. I don't hate anybody taking the shot on Gordon here. You're getting a 42-year-old lightweight in Santos. I get it, but plus 600 for Santos in round 1, not bad. Or you can just take fight doesn't go to decision, which is actually plus money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, the thing is, I don't want to get too sucked in at the prospective lines here. I want to go with what I think is going to happen, and I think Leonardo Santos, as the fight goes on, is going to get worse, and Jared Gordon is going to get better. What really matters to me is going to be that second round, and I think that's where we start to see the flip. I just have a problem betting on the gas tank of a guy who's 42 years old and has shown some decline and shown inability to manage that gas tank.
But you think you think he can probably see the final bell against Gordon, who doesn't have the best finishing potential, is what you're saying?
I just think Leonardo Santos has one foot out the door already.
Okay, yeah, probably. He's probably counting on the days. So, all right, yeah, I'm on the Santos side. I think he does get it done in round 1 if I had to just really make a pick here. But, yeah, after this goes after round 1, my faith in him drastically goes down. I know they flipped the bout order of this fight. I mentioned at the top the Lucia Pudilova fight at bantamweight against Yanan Wu is actually now, if you go to the UFC website, it's on the main card on the pay-per-view, which is insane. But what are you going to do? They got to get these women's bantamweights, some exposure, I guess. But we'll just go over it right now since I don't think we have much to say about this one at women's bantamweight. You got Lucia Pudilova, the Czech women's fighter who was actually in the UFC a long time ago. She had 7 fights in the UFC starting at age 23. So maybe not ready for the level of competition, not mature enough. She went 2-5. And now she's going 5-1 in her last 6. She went back to the Czech Republic promotion, Octagon, where she actually went 5-1, riding a pretty good win streak, all decision results. So she's not become like a murderer or anything, but she's back in the UFC now for her second stint. Pretty big for the weight class, 5'8", 28 years old now, going against Yanan Wu, who's a Chinese prospect, or at least she was supposed to be. but she's gone 1-4 in the UFC. So this could potentially be feeding Yanan Wu to who they think might be a more matured prospect at this point in Pudilova. That's how I see this going. I think Yanan Wu is just super hittable. Although she is durable, she's probably going to see the final bell here. I would take Pudilova to win this by decision. I just like her kickboxing more. She's got a pretty good rangy strikes and decent volume. I don't see anybody betting on this fight with much confidence. I would take whoever you think is going to win and just pick them by split decision probably. So my best prop for this would be like Lucia Pudilova by split decision plus 800. That's what I saw. Not betting it. I think it's just degenerate to bet on this fight by any stretch of the imagination. Can you tell me anything otherwise?
I don't think it's degenerate at all. I bet this fight to go the distance and laugh all the way to the bank.
But I mean, these women are just so unproven. You think something bad could happen to one of them? Could Yanan Wu just take her down and submit her out of nowhere? Or what do you think is there any finishing potential on either side of this fight?
No. Unless here you go. Here's how the fight gets finished. Russia decides now's a good time, start launching nukes all over the place, and they finish the fight. I really don't see. I don't see how
some catastrophic act has got to take place here.
I don't think Yanan Wu is going to go out there and grapple. I don't see her being particularly sufficient in any particular area of mixed martial arts. Lucia Pudilova, like you said, has looked better in her more recent fights. But again, she's not throwing. I don't think either of these women are throwing with any particular power to put anyone away, even by accident, like a headbutt or something like that. I think this one is a decision, all the way. Hope I don't look stupid here, but I'm taking.
It's just at this level, the armbar from guard is always on my mind here in these fights. And Yanan Wu, her one lone decision in the UFC is an armbar from guard over Lauren Mueller, who of course has long since been cut. Lucia Pudilova, I've seen her in that position many a time where she's, kind of almost at risk of getting stuck in that same position. But, this is just a total pass for me. But I think Pudilova does get this done and sends Yanan Wu packing. But you got to imagine if Pudilova loses this fight, they're just going to, send her back overseas, right?
I mean, yeah, but I can't imagine why they would bring her back, put her on the main card just to have her lose and ship her out again and give Yanan Wu another fight for no particular reason. Not saying that the UFC makes fights because they have a particular outcome in mind, but I'm scratching my head at this one. I don't think there's finishing ability. If you're betting and you're putting your money on the fact that there may be this freak event that happens, that's probably not the best bet.
No,
I
not
think
at all.
by far the safer bet is for it to go the distance. And I don't know what I'll have to look up what these odds are here in a second, but. That's what
Papa Chuck. Yeah, I do. She got me for my birthday. That's one of the gifts was that nice flag that I have behind me next to the posters too. So the wife hates UFC. Oh, that's no good. But hey, Papa Chuck's going to the pay-per-view this weekend. Good for you, man. You better take some pictures and put them on the Twitter. Show us what you're seeing. I haven't been to an event in an embarrassingly long amount of time, but I want to get to the Apex this year for sure. But moving on to something more fun. Tyson Pedro and Harry Hunsucker. This is a lot of fun too. And more fun than the actual fight itself is trying to find a way to bet this thing. So why don't you kick us off and tell us what you're seeing in this fight?
So I'm looking at the we have fight starts round 2 plus.
We got just a background. We got Tyson Pedro minus 800 favorite over Harry Hunsucker plus 500 underdog, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. Even Pedro wins by KO TKO minus 195. Let's see what Pedro wins in round 1 minus 230. Let's see if I can get Tyson Pedro wins by knockout in the first round.
So even the props, the props that would normally have huge plus number tags are now all,
Tyson Pedro wins by TKO KO in round 1 minus 120.
That's actually a good point. What do you think is going to happen here with Pedro? He's very much a submission artist more than a knockout guy, but do you think it gets to that point for Harry Hunsucker, or do you think he folds under the striking of Pedro early, the way Ike Villanueva did in his last fight, basically got crippled with the leg kicks of Pedro? Do you think some similar fate happens to Harry Hunsucker here, or do you think Tyson Pedro maybe does take him down and get some sort of BJJ magic going?
I think Ike Villanueva is a light breeze away from a compound fracture. He just seems to be super susceptible to leg kicks no matter where he goes. But that being said, Tyson Pedro has looked pretty good. I training over at City Kickboxing, training, and I'm not sure if my rule about siblings and spouses, if that extends. Yeah, I'm not sure if it extends to in-laws or not.
Him and Tai Tuivasa you're talking about?
Yeah, Tai Tuivasa, exactly. I'm not sure if it extends. And also there's some question marks around Harry Hunsucker and him moving down to light heavyweight for this fight. He has lost a lot of that chub that he would carry around with him.
Oh yeah, do we have visual confirmation on Harry Hunsucker looking ripped? Is that a
ripped, I would say maybe is a stretch, but I would say that he does look a lot better. He doesn't, look like flat, like a guy who has muscle but is adding some extra.
You just imagine him in the sauna, Harry Hunsucker in the sauna making weight with Paulo Costa side by side. I feel like that could be a blossoming friendship.
I mean, well, here's the thing.
Making a big weight cut.
One guy wins and one guy doesn't. And, on our video, there's a bunch of people who, were yelling at us for kind of what they thought was disrespecting Harry Hunsucker. I didn't see it as disrespect. I see it as looking at the facts. Listen, Harry Hunsucker in his UFC appearances has been slow. He hasn't had good head movement. He has short bursts, and he has a real susceptibility to a ground game. He has not shown that he has been able to fight at a UFC caliber level and have success. Now, that has all been at heavyweight. If that's going to be a different story at light heavyweight remains to be seen, but I don't think Tyson Pedro is the guy who's going to show it, a guy who's fought his career at light heavyweight, who's going to have a height and a reach advantage, a guy who, maybe he's a little bit more comfortable and has more finishing ability on the ground, but he's shown that he has finishing ability on the feet. He has very, very strong, quick, and powerful leg kicks. I like Tyson Pedro to get this done in the first round. Harry Hunsucker hasn't shown the ability inside of the UFC to get out of the first round. I'm a guy who goes off the stats and goes by history. And historically, Harry Hunsucker inside the UFC has done terribly against guys with long leg Samoan tattoos.
He's not even just a round one king in the UFC. It's outside of the UFC too. It's always either a win in round one or he's losing in round one every single time. So, I mean, this would be hilarious if this got out of round one. Now, Tyson Pedro in his last fight against even Ike Villanueva was very slow to open up. I know he was coming off of a 3-year-plus long layoff, but he mentioned in the post-fight, they're like, look, you were a little bit, slow to open up. What's up with that? And he's like, well, I'm trying not to be a reckless fast starter, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that was just like making up for him having a little bit of ring rust and nervous energy, but maybe that is like a thing here. That does scare me with all of these round one props, It's like, does he waste 2-3 minutes just kind of like circling Harry Hunsucker? I mean, it's got to be a little bit scary to face Harry Hunsucker, right? Knowing that you just have to ride out like 3 minutes and then you're good. But also you don't want to rush in and be like the one guy that got knocked up by Harry Hunsucker. Like that's got to be a whole other factor of like being worried about it,
You say slow, I say calculated. I mean,
right.
Sure. Tyson Pedro, I think, has been very accurate when he did throw, especially against Ike Villanueva. So, I mean, listen, if that's your game plan, right? Harry Hunsucker has shown an ability to just totally fall off right around the 3-minute mark of the first round. So, I mean, if you're Tyson Pedro, why would you go out there ballistic? You've shown the ability, to go 5 rounds and look good over those 5 rounds, even in a loss. If I'm Tyson Pedro, I'm being very careful that first 3 rounds, and I'm looking to finish it in the end of the first. Hey, maybe he says, screw it. I'll just make sure this fight goes through the first round, and I'll kick his ass in round 2.
Right. I mean,
and then everybody who bets the first round gets screwed.
Harry Hunsucker is the only guy to make Justin Taffa look like Mark Hunt,
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, he made him look like a legend, you know what I mean, with a walk-off, high kick KO. But yeah, I mean, if you could say a couple nice things about Harry Hunsucker, he is fast in those small bursts that you mentioned. Like, he'll throw like a really like
he can
fast,
throw hit hard.
Yeah, he'll close distance like super fast, but he'll do it like a couple of times within the first, half of the round, and then he's pretty much done after that. I see Tyson Pedro's kicking his legs from underneath him as soon as he gets in range. That Harry Hunsucker round 1 KO is like plus 2,500. That covers the only way that I see him winning this fight, which is Pedro throwing a leg kick, and then like Tom Aspinall, his knee falls apart and he loses the fight. Harry Hunsucker wins by, TKO. That's the only way I see Harry Hunsucker really winning the fight.
He's had a lot of knee problems, Tyson Pedro has.
I'm telling you. So, I don't know.
Kept around for 3 years.
Or maybe like Harry Hunsucker like rushes in for one of those blitzing haymakers and Tyson Pedro tries to get out of the way, blows the old tendons right out, and you know.
I said it on Pickin Fights on Sunday. Like, hey, listen, I know we said a lot of kind of negative things at Harry Hunsucker, but if he can come in and get this done, I will wipe away everything he's done at heavyweight, because light heavyweight Hunsucker is a totally new beast if he gets it done. So, you know, jury's still out. We don't have any tape or history to go for, but
let's look at Papa. Chuck, what do you boys think of the unders parlay this week? This is all under 2.5 rounds. Maverick and Young, I like that one. Woodson, Saldana. Yeah, I mean, if I kind of like that one too. If Saldana falls off, especially late round 2, early round 3, that's the riskier one. Albazi, Figueiredo. Okay, that could work too. I think Tommy, you're on the Albazi getting this done at some point, you know, either striking or submission. So yeah, at 8.71 to 1 odds, I like that. But I get that Woodson Saldana one is the one that I think is the most risky out of all those, oddly enough. You would think it would be the women's fight, but I think that one does. I think Maverick can take her down and get her out of there pretty early. But yeah, it's those are pretty juicy odds for just 3 fights in there.
Yeah, the Maverick Young looks good. I mean, I would be interested to see, like, if you could do all under and add the Tyson Pedro in there just to beef up those odds a little bit on something that
isn't the under 1.5 on that one like something insane, like minus 400 or something crazy?
Yeah, I was going through them, like picking him to win in the first round by knockout is minus 170. Like,
good Lord. Yeah, I think the under 1.5 in that fight is something stupid like minus 400 or minus 350, which is one of the biggest under 1.5s I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, I mean, moving on to now this is a true heavyweight fight. We do have Marcin Tybura and Alexander Romanov, a fight that I'm actually very excited for because I like Romanov. Who doesn't? This guy looks like he's got some potential. Whenever you see a guy at heavyweight that's big and strong and now a little bit more trim and athletic, you start, you know, and a nice 16-0 record too, flawless so far. Close against Juan Espino, split decision, technical, but you know, you want to see this momentum at heavyweight because there's not a lot of good ones. There's a very sharp fall off between like the top 5 guys in heavyweight and everybody else, you know. So against Marcin Tybura, this will be his biggest test. And Alexander Romanov is still a minus 350, minus 400 now favorite. Yeah, right around somewhere between that. I see DraftKings has it minus 350, plus 290 Marcin Tybura, but a lot of books are getting to that minus 400 on Romanov. A lot of people parlaying this guy. I don't hate it. And there's a lot of sharp people I see taking the underdog shot on Marcin Tybura, which I don't hate either. You've got all of the UFC experience, 15 UFC fights. He's got 9-6. And typically he's got pretty good takedown defense. I do think Romanov wins this fight, though. This is going to be a big step in competition for sure. But again, I like Romanov's ability to really rush that takedown, 70% takedown accuracy, pretty good ability on the feet with that southpaw stance as well. You know, he's got a lot of his fights don't last very long, but yeah, he's averaging over 6.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, a huge striking differential. I just think Marcin Tybura, like, he's got the experience, but he's really, you know, he's able to beat that upper echelon of heavyweight, and then he loses against like the lower guys, right? He can beat like the Greg Hardys, he can beat the Spivaks, right? He can beat some of these guys, but as soon as he takes that big step up and either a power puncher or somebody that can out-grapple him, he kind of falls apart. So I'm taking Romanov here. I just think this is kind of the big, you know, show me spot for him. And as long as his cardio holds up, that's really the big question mark. Can he, you know, last 2 good rounds and then survive around 3? The Juan Espino fight was the one where it kind of showed the hole in that part of his game. But why should I doubt Romanov here? Do you think Marcin Tybura's got a good shot here?
You mean the guy with the laziest nickname in the UFC, Marcin Tybura?
Is that really his nickname?
Yeah. Listen, I like Romanov. I think any issues that I would have with his potential tank, I can't say for certain are going to be answered by his new and improved physique, but it certainly gives me a lot more confidence in that.
Holy shit, wait, not to cut you off, but holy shit, that is his nickname. Tybura?
Tybura. Like,
why have I never heard of it? I probably just thought Bruce Buffer was like stuttering or something, or like fucking up on the
yeah, no, his name is
I never heard of that before.
I don't. I hope it means something cool, but I'm not positive it does.
He was probably just trying to. They're like, "Do you have a nickname?" And he's like, "No, my name's Tybura." He's probably like got a stutter.
Well, we'll drop the A and call it that. Yeah, I really don't know. Yeah, listen, I think Alexander Romanov is just a better version of Marcin Tybura. Not really impressed with the most recent wins of Tybura. I mean, you have got a win over Maxim Grisham. You've got a decision win over Ben Rothwell, not in the UFC. He knocked out Greg Hardy, not in the UFC. Knocked out Walt Harris. Is Walt Harris still in the UFC, or is he gone now too?
I think he's gone. I want to say
So,
he's gone.
Not showing me. And listen, it's not that much better for Romanov. Wins over Chase Sherman, wins over Jared Vandera. The Juan Espino, like you said, kind of showed that hole in his game as far as the cardio goes. But this is a guy who has a bunch of different wins, a variety of different ways. He's the younger guy, so he's probably going to be improving as he gets, a little bit more trim and as he goes through his career here. At 36 years old, I know at heavyweights they can go for a little bit longer, but I don't think we're going to see any big improvements into the game of Marcin Tybura. I think Romanov is a little bit more dynamic. He's a stronger fighter. He's got even the slight bit better of competition and more dynamic finishes here. There's not really anything speaking to me that's going to say Marcin Tybura is going to win this one. It's basically a fight between two guys, and one is just a better, younger version of the other. So Alexander Romanov, I think inside the distance is a good one. I like what Mushroom proposed there, the under 2.5 rounds. Yeah, I would say add that to that under 2.5 rounds parlay. This one's getting pretty lengthy. I think we could probably take out that Woodson Saldana, add in the Costa and the Romanov, and give yourself a pretty safe but a pretty high return on the under 2.5 rounds.
So you mentioned the same prop that I have for this one, Tybura and Romanov. I like the Romanov inside the distance minus 150. I think there is like a juicy prop on him to win by submission. I want to say it was like plus 375 is what I saw that at. I can see that as a potential. That's usually what his go-to is. But he could just as easily, get the grounded pound. So I wouldn't get cute with that. If you think he's going to win inside the distance, which I think he will, But yeah, the fight doesn't go is a good way to insure both sides, especially if you've parlayed up Romanov for some reason. You could kind of insure that, at least get some of your money back if the fight doesn't go. It does start to get dicey, though. I stopped doing a lot of that stuff myself, like stacking bets to insure other bets, because if the whole thing comes crashing down, you just have a horrible night. So I'm getting a little bit better, more mature about that. But moving on to the most anticipated fight of the night for me, this is Merab Dvalishvili taking on one of my favorite fighters of all time, Jose Aldo. This is at bantamweight, the king of the featherweight division, the best to ever do it at 145. Jose Aldo is the a plus 100 underdog here, minus 120 on Merab Dvalishvili. I think that's what I saw.
Yeah, these lines are close to even. I think Merab, I see him minus 140.
Okay, so it's moving up a little bit. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy to see Jose Aldo at plus money against pretty much anybody. Even when he starts reaching that upper echelon of opponents, you're still like, I'm kind of my head stuck back in the day when he was the champion. So it's always got my attention, and I always want to look for ways to bet this. Jose Aldo, 35 years old, 5'7", 70-inch reach, a couple inches of reach, 1 inch of height over Merab, who is the younger man here, but for as little as we've seen him, he's still 31 years old. So he's
not much younger.
Yeah, not much younger, a lot less fight miles. Jose Aldo, 31-7 record. He's been doing it all for a long time. He's got 27 fights in the WEC and UFC combined, whereas Merab, 9 UFC fights where he's recorded over 60 takedowns so far in just 9 fights, which is crazy. Jose Aldo equally as crazy, a 90% takedown defense, which is just insane. And there's a lot of really convincing stats about the takedown defense of Jose Aldo. I watched so much tape, and it was so enjoyable on these guys, just reminding myself of where Jose was at before, where he's at now currently, and he looks good, riding a bantamweight win streak of 3 fights. And he could have won that fight against Marlon Moraes, who was Merab Dvalishvili's last opponent. So we got to see the resolve of Merab. He got dropped early and managed to come back in the same round and then take it over in the second. Very good cardio, very good speed. He's got technically the youth or the lack of fight miles, the wrestling, of course. And Aldo, of course, you can give him the striking all day. I came out on the Merab Dvalishvili side, honestly. I did. I came out on the side of him. I like him to win by decision. I don't hate anybody taking plus money on Jose Aldo. I think that's a great bet. But I just see Merab taking this one. This is where this becomes more of a sport than it becomes like just a fight for me, where I think that the point scoring style and the output of Merab is maybe going to stalemate some of the already low striking output and activity we see from Jose. But what scares me about it is that Jose Aldo can change the course of a round in just one strike, the way he did against Rob Font several times in their fight. He was able to get kind of outstruck or outnumbered, on the significant strikes, and he would change the course of the fight by getting a knockdown. So I could see that happening here. But if Merab just makes that next level of striking, defense improvements or even striking offense improvements, he does a very good job of mixing in his takedowns with his striking. So I'm going to take him to win this fight. I think he does land takedowns on Jose. Does he even have to hold him down? It might be close enough where that actually sways the judges. So I'm taking Merab by decision here, plus 150. And it almost feels like I'm betting on an underdog here, even though he is the favorite. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I don't want to touch it with my wallet at all. And part of that just is at the fact that they're in Salt Lake City, an unproven athletic commission who are going to be in charge of making a very difficult judging. I don't know if this fight gets finished, but they're going to be charged with making a very difficult decision between takedowns that didn't lead to a lot of damage and potential fewer but still present knockdowns to decide the round. So being the fact that, Mushroom brought it up, that Aldo defends takedowns really well, and he's, likes to throw those elbows in there. We've seen Merab get knocked down by Marlon Moraes, who, and that was the last fight for Marlon Moraes. He wasn't necessarily at the best, probably wasn't the best Marlon that we've ever seen, too. And, Merab does have that crazy work rate. So it's impossible to know what that crazy work rate is going to do to Jose Aldo, especially as Aldo gets older. He does have a lot of fight miles on him, but he's looked good lately, too. He's shown really good ability to, I forget who it was that initially had really good success on Aldo. Oh, it was Volkanovski, by kicking his lead leg. Since then, we've seen Aldo become one of the best at checking that low calf kick. So we're still seeing him, appearance by chance here, we're still seeing Aldo, even at the later stages of his career, make those improvements to his game. So it's really hard for me to know one way or the other what's going to happen. So I'm not touching this one at all. I think I would side with Jose Aldo because I think Merab is going to get those takedowns far fewer than he's maybe used to in the past. I think Aldo, even if some of the takedowns land, he's going to be able to get back up. He, Daza said here, Merab Dvalishvili is also hittable. And you're talking about a guy against Jose Aldo who has definitely been outstruck before, but has also landed the more powerful strikes that's been able to give him the rounds. So I think Aldo's going to lead with the knockdowns. I think Merab is going to probably have a handful of takedowns, but probably at a low percentage. He's going to bring that crazy cardio, but it's just up to the judges. Hey, are they going to go with the guy who's pressing and getting some of the takedowns at a low percentage, or the guy who's defending well on some of them and moving backwards, but also landing the more powerful strikes? How the judges are going to see that, I have no idea, but this is a fantastic fight. I cannot wait.
Yeah, no matter what you bet on this fight, I think you're the smart man here, Tom, for passing on it, because usually when I've got to think this much about a fight, I just tend to pass. If I'm not going to find like a huge edge, I had to take my Jose Aldo fanboy bias out of it that I've always had, but I did end up on the Merab side. I think it's kind of goes like what you said. I just questioned the judging, but I got the plus 150 on the decision prop. But if you want to take the money line and you get plus money on that, I just don't think you should be paying, a price. You should be getting more than you put in, or at least equal on this one. It is that close, and it's going to be such a fun fight too. So I don't hate you for passing. You'll be able to watch this one just as a fan and, enjoy every bit of the craziness. But I will be rooting for Jose Aldo. I'm a huge fan of his, and I hope he comes back and maybe goes on another title run here. But Merab, this is a big step up in competition. A year off, I don't like all of the time off for this guy. Like, it's good, and he's young enough to keep on training and improving. But you're in your prime here at bantamweight. Like, start fighting more. It's almost like a Sean O'Malley thing. You know what I mean? Like, he just needs to start fighting more. But
he's got the mystique. He's a crazy guy, Merab. He's a crazy guy. But I think the safe bet is that it goes. The safest bet is that it goes.
We're just going to touch on this, Daz. Yeah, it goes to decision. Yeah, I think it does too, and I think that's good. I think the potential here for it to end inside the distance is definitely the Jose Aldo side, right? He lands something big, and he can capitalize on finish the job that Marlon Moraes could not, right? And let's face it, Marlon Moraes is basically like Jose Aldo if you just customized him and up the power stats and took everything else out of the equation, like the cardio and the finesse. Yeah, you remove the takedown defense. Yeah, exactly. You just up the power stats on Jose, and you get Marlon Moraes there. But I do think it goes to decision, and that's sitting around minus 200, I believe, for the fight to go. Not a bad spot either if you just want to, play both sides here.
Well, listen, I bet on fights to make fights that wouldn't otherwise be interesting. This fight, I don't need to bet on it to be interesting. You know what I mean? I could sit back, relax, and not care who won just to enjoy it,
Fair play. One other one I wanted to run past you that I saw is the score. Jose Aldo inside the distance. Scorecards equals no action at minus 170. Just being the guy who I think is going to be the one that would end this fight inside the distance. And if it goes to decision, you get your money back. So what do you think about that? Minus 170 just for Merab to really not finish this fight.
I like that. I mean, I would also wonder what the opposite is. Jose Aldo to win. Well, I don't know. But, I would take that.
My book didn't have that. It didn't have the opposite one. Like,
if it's finished, no.
Yeah. And the Merab side of that, like the Merab, it was a huge, plus number because he just typically does not finish the fight unless he can hammer fist, 100 times on Moraes' head unanswered, then he gets the finish. But otherwise, a decision machine. So I thought that was a way I could maybe insure my bet that I did make a 1-unit stab on Merab by decision here. So a little bit of buyer's regret in some ways. I am still sticking with that. That is my prediction of how this fight goes. But it's just that Jose Aldo mystique, man. He's just so scary. He's such a good underdog. So, like Daz says, hope the judges get it right. But moving on to, man, if that was my most anticipated fight, this is probably my second most anticipated fight. It's such a weird one. And I'm not fans of many guys anymore currently. A lot of my favorite fighters are long since retired and have like 8 losses on the end of their record. But Paulo Costa, definitely one of my favorite guys, man. He's so screwy. And he's facing Luke Rockhold, who seems to be a little bit more unhinged as well. So a little bit two guys with, an odd mental aspect to it here. I don't know what's going on in either of their heads. Have you seen the Luke Rockhold series of media day interviews he's done? The guy sounds like he's completely out of his mind.
He always kind of sounds like that.
Yeah, I mean, but it sounds like he sounds like that. You go to your hometown bar and you see the guy that never left home and he's just ranting about how he could have been something and the whole world's against him. That's basically what Luke Rockhold sounded like.
He's annoying.
Yeah. So I'm hoping he gets knocked out here. Paulo Costa minus 300 favorite. Luke Rockhold about a plus 250 underdog. Has that changed? A lot of money's coming on Paulo Costa. My God, he's like a minus 350 favorite. Okay, well, either way, Paulo Costa, I like the round, not even the round. I just like him to win by knockout at minus 150. I have put 1.5 units on that. I think he gets it done within round 1 or round 2. I mean, Luke Rockhold has not been in here in 3 years. He's on a 2 knockout loss streak, even since that long layoff. And Paulo Costa has actually looked decent. The scary thing about Paulo Costa is is he going to make weight? Is he going to do something weird here? Just not even show up? I have no idea. This guy is screwy. I don't think Costa has 2 brain cells to rub together, but I like him for it. He's a very good fighter. And he has his signature combination is that right body kick and then left hook. And Luke Rockhold falls for that every single time he gets knocked out. He's always getting knocked out on that side of his head. He's coming off of a long layoff, and he just had a herniated disc in his lower back last year too. So what kind of training do you think he's getting in? Probably not very quality. He seems a little bit out of his mind. I don't know. I just can't bank on this 37-year-old Luke Rockhold who 5 years ago probably would have dusted Paulo Costa. So a little bit of an odd fight here. Do you think Luke Rockhold is a path to victory?
Not really. Not really. I don't see him knocking out Paulo Costa. If Marvin Vettori couldn't do it, there you go. I mean, yeah. I
got my Paulo Costa wine. We'll hope he makes weight this time.
Listen, if Paulo Costa doesn't show up drunk, who knows what he could do? He may show up drunk and just be like, screw it. I don't need to be in my right mind. I don't know, man. I would feel much safer betting on Paulo Costa than Luke Rockhold. I mean, you could take 3 years off. Does that necessarily improve your ability to withstand punches? Paulo Costa threw bombs with Marvin Vettori. He threw bombs with Yoel Romero. I mean, this is a guy that, he lost to Marvin Vettori, but that was a great fight.
5-round fight, and he looked like he was going to die in round 1 of fatigue, and then he comes through and has
he
four
just
rounds.
Powers through it.
Yeah.
He had the loss to Izzy Adesanya, but, he kind of played into Izzy's game plan where Izzy was just, backing up and landing good shots and sniping the way he did when he was really, really exciting. I did notice here that Luke Rockhold is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here.
But
I
he's
just
got like a 77-inch reach, doesn't he? And
yeah, he's got a long reach.
Costa's got kind of short arms for as tall as he is.
Still not as long as a reach as Sean Woodson.
Right.
So,
but I think Luke Rockhold probably he's probably going to want to take this like in the clinch range and get it against the cage as he always does. He eventually look for the takedown.
I think Paul's going to be too strong.
And even if it goes there, like Paulo Costa loves being in those close range against the fence wars. Like he loves to circle off the cage and use elbows, knees, and just like swing in phone booth range. He loves that. That's like, and he's not afraid to move forward and engage in these wars. So I don't think he'll be afraid of what Luke Rockhold has coming back his way, and I think he knocks him out at some point pretty early in this fight.
And I don't understand where Luke is coming from. Like he'll be like DC's just straight up asking like, why are you fighting? And he's like, oh well, it's not for money, because I make good money and it's for legacy, but it's just business. Well, actually, it's not business. Like
he went way off the rails with that too, because I saw that as well, and he basically said like he stopped fighting because he hated it, but now he's back because he loves it again. Like it was just a really.
I want to see what my true potential is. Oh yeah, you're gonna secure your true potential at 37 years old, and he's like, oh, I just would fight anybody that would come into, who would present a good fight for me, and and even DC was like, yeah, dude, like I like the Sean Strickland fight much better for you than Paulo Costa. And he's like, yeah, but like I don't like Paulo Costa, so like it's fine. And like I don't like Sean Strickland, and like
did he say he's gonna walk if he doesn't get a title shot after this as well? Like if he wins,
I don't know.
I think he said he's gonna walk if he doesn't get a title shot. Which that's a cool bargaining chip if you're like on a huge win streak, But like
and
nobody cares about you anymore.
It's just like you've just been walking for the past 3 years, like. I don't know. They wouldn't.
You got the right idea.
If they valued Luke Rockhold, they wouldn't put him against Paulo Costa. That's a big name to launch Paulo. I mean, here's the thing: Paulo Costa. You're realizing like, hey, I could do whatever. Did you watch The Boys?
No.
There's that meme going around of Homelander at the end where he's just like. He like lasers some dude with his eyes in front of like a bunch of people and everyone just starts clapping for him. He's like, oh, haha, things are fine. That's Paulo Costa right now when he's like, oh, I could just not make weight. I could show up drunk. I can not make weight, cause a bunch of shenanigans, and they still give me a layup guy who has a weak chin and basically no abilities anymore. Old, aging, hasn't fought in 3 years, but still has a big name and a big draw. Mm-hmm. That's what I get for doing all those shenanigans. Oh, the UFC does love me. Like,
that's actually what I love most about this being at middleweight, right? Because they swore up and down Dana White did last year.
You will never fight at middleweight.
Yeah. He's like, this guy's clearly light heavyweight. He's never going to fight at 185 again. This just proves it. And then Paulo Costa basically said, no, I love fighting at middleweight. Dana White's like, yeah, try it. And here we are. So I don't know. A lot of interesting things. All of the outside of the octagon stuff makes this fight so much funnier to me. But we're both in the Paulo Costa by knockout side.
Cannot wait for the press conference.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So moving on to finally the main event. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We got 12 live viewers still hanging out with us. It's been a long card of, mixed bag of fights here, but a lot of wide money lines, but we're trying our best to attack this from somewhat of a useful betting angle here. But we got Kamaru Usman, the reigning champion, taking on Leon Edwards in what is a rematch. They both fought when it was Leon Edwards' first fight in the UFC, and he was like 23, 24 years old. And now he's 30. Usman's 35, making his mark as one of the best welterweight champions of all time, 20-1 record. And now he's got pretty good striking as well. So he's a big favorite here. Is he moving closer towards minus 400? Yeah, minus 400 in a lot of books. And, the plus 310 or so comeback on Leon Edwards. I got to say, I think if this was just like a straight up kickboxing match, maybe Leon Edwards would have a good chance here. Even still, it would be dicey. He's got good striking at range, probably the more technical striking at distance, but he can be pressured. He can be really slow to open up, and he's been so timid to really engage with people these days. Especially that fight he just had against Nate Diaz last year, which we have to remember that was over a year ago now, wasn't it? Those early last summer. So he's been so adamant about getting this title shot. He's on a very good win streak, but it's not the most activity. It's not the most the best opponents. And he's not really again against Nate Diaz. You should be going out there and really going to finish the fight there. And he just didn't really until rounds 4 or 5. He wasn't really going for it. So he got his back a couple of times. That was cool. But good luck against Kamaru Usman here. So I think it would have to be a really off night for Usman and a really, really good, perfect night for Edwards for him to win 3 out of 5 rounds here. And I think the decision would be his only way to do it. And I don't think at plus 300 odds I can even take a stab on it. I'm pretty confident Usman gets this done once again. He's very good in the clinch, very good with his striking these days too after the Gilbert Burns camp. And then now he's knocking fools out. So once again, he can just stalemate the clinch. He can get the takedowns. And he could probably win this fight standing too most of the time. So I'm on the Usman side here. I'm just the only thing that I like here is probably the over 4.5. Just because Leon Edwards could get finished, but we haven't seen it before. He has not been put out that way, so never been finished. Kamaru Usman, not a big potent finisher. In all honesty, I think Leon Edwards has good enough distance control to stay out of harm's way and just lose the fight based on activity. So I like the over 4.5. I got that around minus 155, and I did put I think 1.55 units on that. Yep, exactly, minus 155 over 4.5. So that's all I have in this fight. Although I could see some of the time maybe Usman winning this, but I don't think it's at that high of a clip. What do you think here? Are you taking Leon Edwards to shock the world?
I might.
Okay.
I might. And here's my thought process. Is that first fight, you had Kamaru Usman who relied heavily on his ground game. And we haven't seen him do that in a while. Now, is that because he's fallen in love with the striking? And once you realize you start knocking people out, that's what you do. We've seen that time and time again by a lot of different people. Could it have anything to do with his knees and his ability to wrestle? He wrestled with Colby. Colby was the first guy to take him down, right? So we're potentially seeing a decline in the wrestling ability of Kamaru Usman. We can't say for sure, but there's reasonable suspicion around that. This fight, I think, is going to be predominantly a stand-up fight in which I don't think Usman's striking has raised to the level that Leon's is. Leon has improved his striking game since that first fight you mentioned. He's 23 years old. He's now 31 years old. Usman is 35, so conceivably he's at the tail end of his prime. And he was 26, 27 years old when he was in that fight, and not having necessarily the ground game. I mean, I think Leon Edwards for that fight didn't even really train too much jiu-jitsu or grappling. I think he had went to like American Top Team or AKA or something really quickly to try and like study or cram or what have you, and work on his takedown defense. I think he's going to be much better at stopping those takedowns. And if he does get on the ground, I think he's going to have, some ability to get back up. That would be what I would think is Kamaru Usman's best path, but it's a little bit questionable at this time. I feel like everybody is on Kamaru Usman, and similar to last week where everybody was on Bruno Silva, I kind of want to lean towards GM3 just because of my contrarian at heart. And especially now that I'm starting to see a path for Leon here, the Leon by decision, let me just make sure I'm reading this right because it doesn't seem right to me. Edwards wins by decision. I'm getting it plus 900, plus 700, plus 700, plus 1,000.
Yeah, I saw plus, yes. I saw plus 6, plus 700.
You said it. Usman, I think his striking, while he's maybe developed some power, it is wild at times, and when he knocked out Jorge Masvidal, Jorge was so confident that he wasn't going to get knocked out that he basically he dismissed it. He's like, this guy's not going to knock me out. He has pillow hands. Yeah, whenever you say someone has pillow hands, you're probably going to get knocked out. So I just think there's a potential avenue for victory here for Leon Edwards that makes that plus 800, plus 700, plus 1,000 money line feel really, really good to take. Now, the caveat to that is, like we said, it's in Salt Lake City, it's judging. A lot of times you have to beat the champ in order to be the champ. That's probably going to be the case in Salt Lake City. But if Usman doesn't go for the takedowns, and especially if Leon is able to stop them, I think Leon has the ability to outstrike him from the outside because he's going to be more technical. Neither of these guys, I think, we have seen Kamaru Usman have power, but I think Leon is going to be aware of that. And yeah, he's been a little bit slow to get started at times, but he's also been able to avoid that shot. Now, he got that shot taken by Nate Diaz at the end of that fight. I don't think he's going to make the same mistake twice. He's been holding out for so long for this fight. Now, potentially the nerves are going to get to him. Like, that's something that, you can never really account for. But again, for plus 1,000, I would put that at maybe plus 400. Plus 1,000 seems like a steal to me.
That's not a bad number on it. Yeah, I saw a lot less than that. I saw plus 600, plus 700 on mine, but I'm sure I know like FanDuel usually has really crazy prop odds on there too.
Let's find
plus 1,000. I wouldn't even mind anybody taking a stab on that. Like that is pretty nuts. That pretty much covers that. That pretty much covers like the potential that, yeah, like I mentioned, I think Usman has like kind of a less than ideal night. and Leon Edwards puts it all together on
He
Saturday.
just had hand surgery, dude. Like he was recovering from hand surgery back in May, so he didn't, I think that's right around when he started like sparring again. So you got May, June, July, and August. You really have 2 months to get back into it, and then 2 months of camp. It's not at 35, 36 years old and with bad knees, it's not inconceivable that Kamaru Usman, especially with the cockiness that he's been going around strutting with, it's not inconceivable that he goes out there and has less than an ideal night. Whereas Leon Edwards has had a full camp. He's been waiting for this. He's healthy. He hasn't fought in a year. Like, dude, I think the stars may align that the
I do like your take, because that does happen historically so many times in the UFC, where the collegiate wrestlers who have all of the ability there, they have the knockout success, then they kind of go off with the wrestling game plan and start. That happened to Rashad Evans quite a bit. It happened to Tyron Woodley. I mean, a lot of these guys. Yeah, there's a lot of these guys. I can name so many that happened to, and they never really quite got it back until they were really past their prime. They started wrestling, and they were already too old to get their game going back the way it used to be. So I don't hate the take on it. Yeah, it's just hard to see. You really have to do some good forward thinking about, like you mentioned, all these outside the cage things, the age, to bet against greatness here. Like, you have to kind of take all those things in there, foresee something you haven't seen before in the champion, because you're not going to get there by looking at his record at 20-1.
Right.
You're not going to get there looking at the fact he's ever been. Not only is he not lost, but he's not been finished, not been knocked out, not been, he's been rocked a couple of times, but, recovered well. So you're going to have to look at a lot of the things that you touched on. And yeah, Leon Edwards himself, he's going to have to really put this all together on Saturday, because he's been very protective of this streak, very protective of who he fights, when he fights, been very inactive. And even the times he gets in there against, like I mentioned, like Nate Diaz a year ago, he still didn't want to be the guy to get knocked out or pieced up by Nate Diaz, and it almost happened. So, I like Leon Edwards. I like his striking in this fight. I really do. I think he's got very good technical ability to switch stances too, which Usman does at times, but Leon's way more proficient at doing that and striking confidently out of both stances. I do like it. Just very hard to see. I don't think Leon Edwards is the guy. I think Kamaru gets this one done, but I do agree. You do agree that if Leon wins, it's probably going to be by decision, right? So we're
right. Yeah, I don't see Leon being the guy to finish him, and I don't see him submitting him in any round.
Sure. So so that was one of my best props, is the over 4.5. So all right, I like your takes on Leon Edwards there. I am going with the champion to be and still, but you want to do a quick rundown of your top 3 props over this card? Mine were kind of towards the end of this fight. One of them was this Usman Edwards over 4.5 at -155. I put a stab on that. I did put a stab on 1.5 units on Costa by knockout at -150. I think he gets that done. And I do like the fight doesn't go to decision for Leonardo Santos and Jared Gordon. So I think Santos gets him out of there in round 1. But if he'll have a tough night ahead of him if he doesn't, and he gasses out the way he has as a 42-year-old lightweight. And I think Gordon could take over there. So those are my 3. What do you got, Tom?
So I do like that parlay that we made kind of as the show.
The unders
here. I like the under 4.5 or under 2.5, depending on, I guess it's under 2.5. I like that under 2.5 round parlay that we had going that protects like a lot of different things. I would add, You had
Maverick. It was Maverick and Young under.
But I would add Paulo Costa to win in under 2.5. I like Romanov to win in under 2.5.
Okay.
Add Pedro to that. I think there's a lot of, even though individually they may not be super juicy, I think when you add them together, it protects you from a lot of different things happening. I really, really like that one. And the more we're talking about it, I like Leon by decision, because it seemed pretty juicy, and it seemed.
You're looking at like plus 900, plus 1,000 on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. DraftKings was plus 900 for Leon Edwards winning a decision.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. For as high level as he is, and how good he is at winning decisions.
Right.
That's not a bad look at all, for sure.
Feels wrong.
Because just as much as you can see the shiny record of Usman, and you can see the good competition it's been against, again, you haven't seen Leon Edwards look all that bad, although he hasn't been consistent. You can't really poke holes in this game either. So to get 9-1, 10-1 odds in that, yeah, it's not bad. And that's a good for everybody that's going to be putting together parlays this week with big favorites. That could be your one moneymaker, like your savior, your insurance policy is Leon by decision in case something crazy happens that way. So, all right, Tom, I'll give you the floor. You can tell us about your podcast, what you and Keith do on your YouTube channel. Direct everybody over to you guys, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for inviting me on, guys. Go over to Pickin Winners. We have a bunch of different sports on there. We do lacrosse, we do baseball, we did golf, but mainly our main show is called Pickin Fights. We're going over there and we go through the main card and we pick each fight for every UFC pay-per-view. We give our prelim notables. Some of them are locks, some of them are just fights to watch. Appreciate all the support. Also, you can check us out, Men of Order. That's where we post our Spotify and we post the link to the YouTube. And also Men of Order, just in general, we're working with a guy named Hotep Jesus. Pretty popular over on Twitter, been on Joe Rogan a couple of times. So check out Men of Order and the stuff we're doing over there. And, appreciate you having me on, Patrick.
Of course, man. I wouldn't have you or Keith on and vouch for your guys' channel if it wasn't the good stuff, man. You guys are really
Appreciate
sharp
it.
guys, and one of the more courageous guys on YouTube that put their stuff out on Sunday on their live stream. So guys, go check them out. They're very close to 200 subs, so go give them a follow. You won't regret that. So, all right, you guys, thanks for hanging out in the chat. You guys have been awesome. Daz, Mushroom, Papa, Chuck, everybody else in the chat. I know Victor De Jesus is probably working the second shift as always. Mushroom in the chat as well. And Johnny K Picks and Blood Money MMA Bets, Mr. D. I'll talk to you guys very soon. Probably tomorrow I'll drop that best bets and props and give you guys the final slate of my betting action for this pay-per-view. All right, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Enjoy the fights. Cheers.